development tour, and he's been talking to people about how they look at the situation with, I guess, the economy and business going forward. He joins us now on the Newsmaker Hotline to talk about that and a whole lot of other stuff, Senator. I got on my list of questions to ask you about that. So first of all, you are talking to business leaders out there. What are you hearing?
Well, it's been great to be back home, Brian. I started out up in Northeast Tennessee and making my way across the state today. This morning I was in Middle Tennessee, out in White Bluff at Bordeaux Metals. Later in the day I was in National City at Cayman Boats. Just left Amazon's headquarters there in Nashville, talking with all of them about the growth that they're trying to undertake. The fact that, frankly, in Tennessee, we have it a lot better than most other states, but there's still challenges here that we're confronting, and those challenges have a great deal to do with failed policies from the Biden administration that are hampering businesses all over the United States. There I'm talking about the war that Biden has waged on domestic energy. I'm talking about massive new regulations, and the fact that Biden is out, quote, touting his economic successes when he set off the most incredible round of inflation that we've seen in 40 years. It's just like he's living on a different planet. That's not the world that Tennessee businessmen and women are experiencing right here.
Yeah, you have the president talking about Bidenomics, which I think has a negative connotation in my book. But he's saying, no, it's not working yet, but we're really, 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 really close. We're starting to see some signs that maybe soon it might start working. And they can't really point to anything that has been truly successful. And certainly we have seen, the average business owner seems to be really struggling just to stay above water these days. What about the labor market very quickly on that? Because I know everywhere I talk to people who are in business right now, they're talking about how they need people to work. Well, we have a lot of people who are available to work, apparently, but they're not working. What's going on with that?
Well, business owners are telling me that they're just tired of competing with the federal government. I was talking with one of our leading Tennessee businessmen earlier this week, and he was telling me about how he had an employee for a number of years. The fellow figured out after an injury, although he's been able to overcome that. He had a stroke, but he was able to find a way to get onto permanent disability. Just there's so many programs now that people can get onto very easily under this administration, and there's just this culture now that has been, I think, deepened significantly with all the stimulus dollars, et cetera, extensions of unemployment, telling students they don't have to pay their loans back, all of this government largesse that's being passed around that's created that among certainly not every worker in Tennessee, but among some, that they're better off, finding a way to get the government to tote the note for them, to get the government to foot the bill, and not to work. And that's just a terrible sort of mindset to be incentivizing here. I mean, there's real dignity to work, Brian, as you and I both know, that's the path upward in America.
I feel that way, and I know you do. Okay, so you started to say something, and I cut you off. I want to make sure you get your point across.
I just think you talked about the success that Biden is touting. I think the only real success that Joe Biden has had with respect to the economy is this Orwellian mischaracterization of numbers that the media tends to pick up on. I mean, he's going around and touting the fact that inflation is down. No, inflation isn't down. It's just not growing as rapidly as it was when you set it off. They are basically repackaging, quote unquote, everything, talking about all this job creation. The vast majority of the jobs that he's taking credit for are just people coming back to work after the pandemic. This is not anything that Joe Biden has done. It's in spite of what Joe Biden has done. If you think about it, he's complaining about the, quote, the Trump tax cuts from the 2017 Jobs and Tax Reform Bill. The biggest beneficiary of the tax cuts under President Trump were the lowest income Americans. The people that got the lowest increase, so obviously the lowest benefit as a percentage, were the higher income Americans. But in the Biden world, everything gets flipped upside down. Everything is misinformation. As I said, it's like George Orwell was writing the script for Joe Biden.
Well, speaking of our president, before he headed off to Chicago to give his speech, he was stopped outside the White House, just outside the White House door before he got on the helicopter. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, Senator, but I'm going to play it for you so you're up to speed.
Okay.
He was asking a question about Russia, but listen very carefully to his answer.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Did you catch that? He said he was asked about Russia, and he said, "Well, they're clearly having trouble And then he went on to say, they're losing the war in Iraq. I'll play it one more
It's
time.
Hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Well, nobody that I know of is aware of any war between Russia and Iraq right now. The president clearly misspoke again. It was on the same day we learned that apparently the president sleeps with a CPAP machine. And the only reason we know that is because he was seen this morning up close by photographers, and he still had the strap marks in his face, from sleeping all night with with the CPAP mask on. So, I mean, that's a medical device. You have to have basically a prescription to get one. These things keep coming out every day. It's like, what's going to happen next? What kind of thing is the president going to say? What is the sense in Washington right now about whether or not we have a president who's in charge and able to make the tough decisions, like he might have had to have faced this past weekend with Russia and what was going on with the Wagner Group?
Yeah, it's been a concern since back in the campaign, Brian. And neither you nor I wish any ill health to Joe Biden. I feel sorry for any health ailments that he's got. But he's the commander-in-chief of the United States, and he was running for that position from his basement back in 2020. They did everything they could to shield him from criticism, to shield him from scrutiny, to shield him from exposure to the American public. And then they turn around and expect the American public to vote for him. There's so many things that they buried. We're finding out about Hunter Biden's laptop, more and more.
Right.
The things that we should have known that we didn't know. But they do everything they can to keep Joe Biden out of the mainstream. They've got these unelected staff that are all retreads from Obama that are back in office again, and they're pushing this ideological agenda, and Joe Biden seems to me to be just going along with it. I think he is just, a figurehead in many, many respects, as opposed to the person that's really, knuckling under, making the tough decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And when we hear this misspeaking taking place, you get the White House staff comes back and, walks it back. 4 times now he said that the United States would come to the aid of Taiwan if China were to, come across the Taiwan Strait into Taiwan. And each time the White House staff, well, no, he didn't really mean that. I mean, this is not the way to run the largest, most significant country in the world. Yet this is the type of leadership we've got.
Well, and yeah, that's look, there's some evidence that suggests that there was a pay-to-play scheme. It seems that Chuck Grassley and James Comer over in the House Oversight Committee are coming up with good data. You've got whistleblowers coming out with, again, more stories today suggesting that the investigation that was conducted into Hunter Biden didn't go very far because there were a great number of times where the Department of Justice shut them down. What's going on in this country if that's allowed to happen, where the DOJ says, I'm sorry, no, you can't investigate that matter?
And Brian, back last year when I had Attorney General Merrick Garland in front of me, I just posed a question to him. I said, how do you do this? How do you as Attorney General investigate your boss when he has the ability to fire you? If you want to keep your job, that's pretty tough. He assured me, no. This Mr. Weiss, the U.S. Attorney from Delaware, has complete authority, and I'm staying out of it. The White House is not involved. He's got complete authority to prosecute this as he wishes. Then we find out from the whistleblowers, who have no incentive to lie. In fact, they have every incentive to just stay quiet. The whistleblowers come forward, and again, there are multiple whistleblowers corroborating one another, that indeed the political appointees at the Department of Justice were stepping in, were shutting down the investigation, were constraining it, letting the statute of limitations run out. It sure seems to me that what the Attorney General said doesn't square with the truth, and that is a huge problem for him when you think about that. So
when I hear people, though, when I talk to people about it, and I tell these stories every day, I mean, just about every day there's a new development, a new drip to the story, and people say to me, yeah, but Wilson, nothing's going to get done. And I have a hard time coming back with a good defense on that. What would you say?
It's far more difficult to get things done than I ever imagined, Brian. I'm not a politician. The first time I ran for office was for the current position I hold. I've been there for 2.5 years, and I've just been in shock at the power of this unelected bureaucracy and about the friction that they can put into play. When you see a business person like me coming in, you want to see results, and all they do is try to stymie that. And they take a real position. They're putting their finger on the scale. But you see things happening as slow as possible, as you say, drip, 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 when it comes to, the Democrat commander-in-chief, but when it comes to his main opponent, Donald Trump, they're accelerating everything like crazy. And the American public's too smart for this. They see this two-tiered system of justice unfolding. I think we're sickened by it. It's something that I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to maintain politically, but it's something that we've got to push back on this unelected bureaucracy that have given them the ability to do this for so long.
All right, put on your thinking cap with regard to politics for a moment. I'm making the prediction on this program that I do not think that Joe Biden will ultimately be the nominee for Democrats. But my sense of it, I'm not sure how it ends up being the case, but that they'll find a way to let him off the hook easily, and that somebody else will emerge. Who that is just now, I'm not real clear. But what's your assessment of what the Democrats might do across the as you look across the aisle?
Well, it's very difficult for me to agree with that right now, Brian. Not because I don't think that wouldn't be better for the country, because I think you're right. But the Democrats have gotten away with pushing the pendulum so far left under Joe Biden. They're getting no resistance from the commander-in-chief. What you have are theologians and ideologues that are able to shove this thing as far left as they possibly can. I could not have imagined the amount of damage that they've been able to accomplish in 2.5 years, yet they've done it. So I think the extreme left is probably thrilled to have Joe Biden in office. From a practical standpoint, though, and I think this is probably where your mind is, when the Democrat political powers that be look at this and they say, look, Joe Biden's numbers are in the tank. Joe Biden's going to have a hard time winning the general election. That may be what moves them in the direction that you're describing. That practical reality of the fact that the American public just can't withstand another 4 years of Joe Biden, and that's going to manifest itself when the polls come out, closer and closer we get to the election.
Yep.
I mean, his number, he's upside down right now. So
Yep.
that may be that the politics of it may be the reason that some of the powers that rule in the Democrat Party may step up and come up with an alternative. Joe Biden has been so bad for the country, and again, the American public is got to wake up to this.
Yeah, I'm disheartened to hear you say after 2.5 years you can't believe how difficult it is to get things accomplished and how much damage that can be done in that short amount of time. I was there 31, and I never ever have seen it as bad as we see it now. And by the way, speaking of Joe Biden, his numbers are in the tank. Kamala Harris has the lowest negative numbers in the history of all vice presidents right now.
Well, yeah, it was a very salient point you made. It's hard to say who it would be other than Joe Biden, but she'd be the last person they'd want, don't you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. I don't know. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but I think it will. But we'll see. Senator, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. It's great to talk to you. Please don't be a stranger. We appreciate you here on Super Talk.
Likewise, Brian. All the best. Thank you.
All right. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.